It looks like I'm live here. There's something wrong with my chat box, so I'm gonna just go ahead and watch the chat on here and do the Q&As from there. So yeah, I'll just have to pay attention to the phone a bit. I'll wait a bit for let some people get in here so we can start chatting. I know a lot of people will just end up watching this video later. I'm going to go through the forecast real time for the European model. The GFS is already ran. I took a brief look at that, not a detailed one. I liked what the 18Z GFS and the European model showed in the ensemble control. The European model showed an Arctic front kind of coming down the Puget Sound on a Sunday. Sorry, not on Sunday, but on Christmas Day. And that will be, Christmas this year is on a Saturday. So yeah, let's take a look at the GFS a little bit more in detail, and I'll let the Euro run for a little bit here. And we'll go ahead and look at a multi-parameter, 6 hours. I mean, I haven't looked at Hawaii there. What are you guys looking at? I'll actually be out there in a couple of weeks. So you guys are getting trades right now. I don't see any kind of atmospheric river in our near future from Hawaii, but I'm always watching out for that. Here is the overlay of that 8, or actually the 10 to 14 day forecast. I believe 8 to 14 day forecast. You can see all the Pacific Northwest, Montana the biggest. You can see on the east side of the Rockies that matches that perfectly. That's where most of the cold air usually goes, and there's going to be no exception this time. So yeah, we're probably going to get a couple rounds of snow potential, and it's going to change. It's going to go back and forth as we get closer here in these individual events. We're bound to get some people that get really surprised with actual heavy snow out of this, and some people are going to get blanked at times, but there's going to be multiple events, so there's going to be a chance for everybody eventually at some point. But yeah, when Arctic air gets nearby, there's a lot of surprises with what happens. Sometimes you get these little weak, subtle systems that kind of move in and drop 3 inches of snow when the models weren't picking it up more than 24 hours before. So tomorrow morning we might see a little bit of snow also as this band of moisture kind of slides north. Temperatures are chilly, but I don't expect anything to stick on the street or anything like that. It shouldn't be a disruptive snowfall event at all. Precip totals are pretty light, so it doesn't look like it's going to be much of an issue tomorrow, but it would be nice to see some snowflakes fly. I mean, wouldn't mind that. And I zoomed in too far there. Let's back out a little bit. Yeah, this tool is WSV3, and it's kind of nice. It's a little clunky sometimes, but it's got tons of information on it. Pretty nice tool. You can overlay pretty much anything from earthquakes to any kind of warning or watch you want to look at, or model data. It's good for that too. But I like doing the internet browser. It's faster. And the 25th to 26th, I would just pay attention to the roads. I mean, just pay attention to what's going on. I would say it's probably going to be okay. It's pretty hard to get it to where I-5 gets shut down or anything. I don't think we're looking at that quite yet. Depends on where you're going also. If you're going south of Seattle, you're probably going to be okay during the day. Looks like there might be a convergence zone that sets up anywhere from Tacoma north. So it kind of depends on where you're going there too. Yeah, Vancouver's going to get shots at snowfall also. They're not going to be any exception. It depends on where this low sets up to. If the low sets up closer to Nia Bay or the North Washington coast, it's more likely to spread moisture back up over that Arctic air as it starts to seep through. And see, it's pretty chilly up there in Vancouver right now at 32 degrees, 30 degrees right at sea level. Pretty chilly back over the interior of BC too. Check that out. There's some below zero readings well up there, and the real Arctic air is not even nearby yet. Back out a little bit there. There we go. So yeah, it's a nice tool. You can really adjust anything you like on it too. So yeah, so I'm going to go over some of those individual scenarios. Let's just get right on into that. In fact, so the 18Z GFS. If I believe, I don't think it was the mean, but I will check it out here. Let's take a look at what it showed for next Christmas, because it was pretty interesting here. This is Wednesday, Thursday, and this is Christmas Eve morning here. You can see there's Arctic air now into British Columbia. You can see by those tight gradients there, and you can see this troughing, this 992 low is off here. And you can see the northwest interior there in Vancouver is getting pretty good snowfall here on Christmas Eve morning on the 18Z GFS run. And here we get into, this is Christmas Eve, very early in the morning, just after midnight. You can see some moderate snow going across the Puget Sound even, and most of Western Washington, BC, and Western Oregon are getting snow at this time. And this is 21Z on December 25th, so it's still Christmas afternoon. You can see there is kind of an Arctic boundary here sagging down into Western Washington, and that's just hanging across the Puget Sound, and you can see bands of snowfall north. The Olympics are getting it all the way down through Western Oregon. And if we take a look at surface winds here, you can kind of see that too. You see the Fraser River outflow going on here. In fact, let's zoom in a little bit. Let's go. So again, we're covering the Christmas Eve and Christmas Day GFS scenario right now. So you can see outflow winds pouring through the Fraser River gap, and they're kind of going down the sound, and then you can see winds converging around the Olympics. So there's a kind of a modified Arctic boundary right in here. And if we take a look at this is 3-hour precipitation. Remember, we look at 6, and you can kind of see where that band is set up there. That's kind of the classic Arctic, modified Arctic front. And if we go back to wind there, you can see by 4 o'clock Christmas afternoon, the north winds all the way down through the Puget Sound, down towards Olympia now. So that boundary will be sliding south during the day. Again, this is just one scenario. This is probably going to waffle back and forth as we go. Now I want to check to see, we're going to go back to Christmas Eve, and we're going to check the latest GFS and see if that still shows. That's one of the main keys with forecasts, is making sure you have the consistency in run to run and model to model. So you can see southerlies going through the Puget Sound there, and there's some weak offshore flow up there in British Columbia. You can see the winds pointing out at the northeast. And then as we go into Christmas Eve morning, southerlies are converging over Bellingham and southern BC. So you're getting some good snow up there. So let's keep going with this. This is Christmas Eve morning. You can see the outflow winds are going to Fraser River. For those of you who don't know, the Fraser River is a river valley up here, and it's a great conduit for cold air that goes all the way into interior of British Columbia, and it's a great funnel for cold air into the region. And anyone who lives up in Bellingham knows these winds well. They can get very strong. They bring cold air, and they're very dry air also, and it can keep Bellingham in snowy scenarios when Seattle and Everett are getting rain. So yeah, you can see the Fraser River Valley winds going on Christmas Eve morning. We get into Christmas Eve, or in the afternoon now here, and you can see them start to shift out of the north there. And that starts to get Whidbey Island. It's probably going to cause a convergence zone across into the Puget Sound a bit there. And this actually speeds up that kind of modified Arctic front by there that are northerlies going down the Puget Sound here into Christmas morning. So that's a little bit faster. That's probably a good thing for snow lovers. As you can see here, as we get into Christmas afternoon, those northerlies are all the way down the sound towards Portland. So let's go ahead and look at what that band of snow looks like. Wow, that is an impressive signal there. I mean, all over western Washington, except for the coast, and even down towards Portland, is getting snowfall at this time. This low is going to be tapping very cold Arctic air that comes off of that high in British Columbia. So even though it's offshore and it comes back onshore, that it's going to be tapping that colder air aloft. And it's probably going to bring the snow level down to the surface in most areas, like it's showing here. I don't know why it's got that green blob over Whidbey Island there. It's not going to happen if this scenario unfolds. But there's central Puget Sound. You can see that moderate snow band going across. Looks like part of the modified Arctic boundary as it moves around a bit. Here's Christmas morning. You can see the modified Arctic boundary kind of stalled over the central Puget Sound. So you guys know in December 1990, that boundary stalled across Seattle and North Seattle and actually downtown, and it brought over a foot of snow in some areas and even thunder snow. So that would be a treat to wake up to Christmas morning. That's pretty impressive right there. And you can see that band kind of slide down the Puget Sound there and off into the mountains, but the snow continues. And so let's see, let's go, while we're fresh on this, let's go right to the European and let's see if what that is showing for Christmas Eve. If we're there yet, we might not be there yet. Okay, so we're gonna have to wait for that. So yeah, the GFS actually sped up the Arctic front, which is actually a good thing if you like snow. The weather forums checking in. Hi, how you guys doing? BC storms here. What else? Well, the guy who said he's on mute, I wish I could talk to him because it doesn't look like a bust yet. So it's looking pretty good. Easterly winds maybe later on. We'll take a look at that as we get into the extended here. So yeah, the arrow's running right now. And while we're doing that, let's go ahead and look. Let's zoom out a bit here. Let's look at this. You're looking at the North Pole here. You're looking straight down at the North Pole here. You can kind of see Washington here, North America. Here's Asia. Here's Japan, here's Siberia, here's Africa. And it's kind of hard to make out with these colors sometimes. But anyway, let's put this into motion and see what the GFS is showing here. So you can see the cutoff low over California down here. I don't know if you guys can see it. Actually, it's this way. Oh, that way. And the screen's playing with me. Okay, so you see the cutoff low over California where my mouse is here. And then you can see the next system sliding down towards Washington State. That's right here. You see the polar vortex all the way up here over the North Pole and all the way down over Hudson Bay. Watch that thing as it spins a lobe down towards us right there. You see that lobe getting to us. This is on the 23rd, the evening. You can see the polar vortex getting close. And this is Christmas Eve morning. You see that low pressure off of Washington coast there? And you see the big high over here. It's not a huge high, but it's got good gradients all the way down through the Puget Sound. So let's back up and take a look at where that air comes from. Watch this lobe over Siberia here, all the way across the planet. Watch that lobe break off and stream across the Bering, actually not the Bering Sea, actually that's over the Arctic Ocean up there. And that comes across the north shore, the north slope there of Alaska, merges with that polar vortex already and kind of slides down into BC there. So you can see that Arctic air just come across. That's Siberian air actually that comes all the way across. And the reason why that doesn't just become zonal or just develop out here is because this huge ridge right here is just steering that really cold air right around the ridge. It's bringing it around and down into British Columbia and towards us. So that will be the first one, Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. Looks like a snow potential. And that is shown right there. You see that low off the Washington coast? That's what you want to see. Arctic air, powerful gradients. Arctic air is going to be flowing off the continent into Western Washington. You get that little cyclogenesis. It creates a little low pressure out there. And when that low sets up off the coast there, it's got all the moisture it can work with. If the trajectory is right off of British Columbia, we have no limit to how much moisture can be drawn in here. You can get some pretty significant snowfall events when the upper level winds are taking a good path off of BC and back into Western Washington. So there's Christmas morning there, and as we saw, the snow is still going on and just really powerful gradients from the interior BC to Western Washington into Oregon. And the low just kind of hangs out there for a while. I mean, that could go on for a bit here. That's very interesting looking. Hopefully the Euro shows similar. And as we go into the future here, you'll see another lobe of this polar vortex. It's all the way out here and it's swinging down towards us again. And another system swinging right over Bellingham. It looks like that low is square over Bellingham. And then it slides inland. A system like that could bring a very vigorous Puget Sound convergence zone. It might be a little north there, Snohomish County maybe, and as that thing, and then you can see another low develop. When this Arctic air comes off over the ocean, it develops these little lows and they swing around it as you see them doing there. And then we're into the new year there, and a little bit, we get clipped a little bit there, but by then we're really cold. This high has just got us in a northerly flow. There's really deep Arctic air to our east, so we're not warming up here. Even though the snows are probably done at this point for us, we still would not have warmed up by then. And let's go back to that zoomed in map and look at the temperatures and just kind of check this out. So this is the 21st we're looking at. This is the European, sorry. Let's go back to the GFS. Yeah, we're doing real-time model watching here. So let's see what the GFS said as far as temperatures. This is Christmas Eve morning. You can see that Fraser River influence there. It's got Orcas Island all the way down to 28, Bellingham 26, up through the valley there. You can see it in the teens, even below 10 degrees. Look at that Arctic air just becoming established over British Columbia. Vancouver in the mid-20s. And you can see Seattle hasn't cooled down yet. You see Everett drop down. That's probably the influence of the modified Arctic front getting them now. It drops to 28 there, Everett. And by then, Seattle gets at 30 degrees. And we're not coming above freezing probably for a while. As you can see, this is Christmas night. Seattle mid-20s. Look at Vancouver, 10 degrees. Bellingham, 12. You can see below zero temperatures just off to the northeast there in British Columbia. Cold air getting established in eastern Washington now. The morning of the 26th, you're going to wake up and it might be in the upper teens there. Look at Seattle. That's amazing. I mean, we might not get above 20 degrees there on the Sunday, the day after Christmas. And 1610, I mean, the GFS is just kind of bonkers with this Arctic air. Happens sometimes though. I mean, it does happen. We used to get these really big Arctic outbreaks a little bit more frequently back in the day, but it does happen. Then we go into the future a little bit more here. We get to the mid-20s on the 28th. Now look at that. We hit freezing there on Wednesday, and then we drop back down again with probably another bit of Arctic air pushing into the region. And look at that. GFS has us 7 degrees at SeaTac. Actually, that might not be SeaTac. That might be Seattle proper. SeaTac might be even a little colder. But yeah, very impressive signal coming up there on the GFS. So GFS, another really great run for snow lovers. Let's see. Wow, for Vancouver, yeah. And we'll take a look at the European model here right now. I mean, the models are going to waffle back and forth there for the next few days. So let's go ahead and look at, well, I actually want to do that with, actually, let's start out with wind. So we can kind of mark see if that Arctic front makes its way down into the Puget Sound. So you can see our offshore winds going on now. We got nice north wind over the Puget Sound tonight. Got some sunshine today there. And as we go into 21st and 22nd, you see the southerly winds coming back ahead. All the way across the Puget Sound, all the way up in British Columbia there. Still no sign of the offshore. This is December 23rd. The winds start to weaken a bit there. Brand new Euro running here. This is the 23rd, and we're not going to get to Christmas Eve just, well, we got to Christmas Eve there. You can see the winds turning northeast through the Fraser River Valley here. That's the start of the Arctic air trying to make its way in. We still have southerlies through the sound, so you're probably getting convergence up here in southern BC, probably getting snow at this point. Let's check it out. And yeah, it's there. It's probably going to be marginal temperature wise. And you can see Christmas Eve is warmer on the European model. It has some rain in there, mostly through the lowlands. That's probably more realistic. And as we go into Christmas Eve night, you can see getting a nice snowfall there. Christmas morning is right here. And let's see where we are wind-wise. Looks like the wind is a little bit behind. Is that what's going on? So, yeah, we'll just have to wait for this run to come in here. But yeah, you'll notice that the European doesn't have the Arctic front coming down on Christmas Eve evening there. So that is a difference from the GFS for sure. And let's take a look at this. Let's see if this is going to update here. This is the 18Z GFS run. Yeah, you guys are talking about that heat there in British Columbia. Now you're going to go into the icebox. Especially the interior of British Columbia up there. So here's the GFS 18Z. Still has not updated yet. Let's take a look at the... We're going to look at the GFS mean. So this kind of takes all ensemble runs into account here and just kind of gives a general average. So that weak system clipped through on the 23rd. And there comes the... See, this is a mean, so this is just kind of showing general location averaged out. So it's not going to show the lows, the individual lows as they move around. So it's not that useful. Just kind of gives you an idea that, yes, the pattern is turning colder around Christmas. And then I wish that European model would hurry up here, but it doesn't look like... Let's see, let me refresh this. Looks like the winds are starting to turn around Christmas morning, but it is behind where it was, I believe, at this point on the 18Z. Let's go ahead and match that up. Yeah, you can see there's some differences here. We've got the northeast winds on the 18Z out of the Euro. This is kind of it's what I talked about the models waffling back and forth. You can see that Fraser River Valley coming out there, and it's all the way down through the Sound. Oh, sorry. Wow, that was a mistake. Sorry about that. Actually, let's do the 12Z this morning because the 18Z is going to be goofed up on that. So that's the 23rd. Let's go to Christmas morning here. You can see that if you compare these two, the Fraser River is going here on the 12Z this morning. So there is a little pushback on the Arctic air timing-wise on the European coming up here. Okay, look for some questions here. Europeans historically more accurate. And these models are going to waffle around a bit here. So, you know, we're not going to look at one run and declare something this is going to be expected to happen. These models are going to have a hard time with the position of Arctic air and trajectory, and it's going to result in different positions for the low, and that's going to change how the onshore flow looks versus offshore. And yeah, a lot of times we get Arctic air through the region, and then we'll get a Pacific storm that kind of overrides that, and that's how we do get some of our nice snowfalls. That happened in 2012, January, if you guys remember that one, where we had Arctic air just in place, and we had a system coming in, and had that been 50, 75 miles further north, Seattle would have got easily more than a foot of snow. There were some really big snowfall totals in southwest Washington. So yes, definitely with Arctic air in place, we tend to get some big snowfalls. It can happen both ways too. You can get it with the Arctic air coming in, and you can get it as it gets shunned out by a warmer system. And if you're lucky enough, sometimes you'll have Arctic air in place and you'll get a Pacific system move over you, and it'll track just south of your area, and you'll stay in the cold deformation band, and it'll stay below freezing, and you'll just pile up the snow and even reinforce any Arctic air to the north. So let's see, is this updating here? Looks like we got a little bit more. Yeah, this is Sunday afternoon, and it does not show Fraser River winds going. It's very strong. It's pretty weak flow compared to what it had earlier today. So that's probably a result of this low developing a little further off the coast here. So we can go ahead and take a look at that. Let's zoom out. I have to come off of that. So let's go to regions and northwest. So yeah, you can see the Arctic air coming off the coast of British Columbia and back into western Washington, but we don't have that strong response yet through the Fraser River gap, and so there's not much Arctic air getting in south of Bellingham at this point. Let's take a look at yeah, that low stays a little bit farther north here on Christmas Day. You can see that low, that polar vortex is going to swing down. That is really close though. That's going to be a really cold upper level low. It might be able to bring snow levels down with it. Let's take a look at. Yeah, it says all snow pretty much through the Puget Sound at this point. This is Christmas. It's like Christmas Day there. Yeah, Christmas late morning, afternoon. There is snow going on through the Puget Sound. Maybe a little rain mixing in where it's warmer down the Willamette Valley a little bit there. And you can see some heavier bands, it looks like, just north of Seattle there. And then it looks like something's setting up over the Puget Sound here. So let's look at the next step here. Let's bounce there and just kind of see what the surface wind says. Yeah, there's probably some convergence in the area. And the upper level low is pretty close by, and the air is very cold. So you probably are getting temperatures that are close to being freezing at the surface. Let's go ahead and check here. .34 in Seattle there, and then 30. So it's probably going to be right. Anything that falls at that point is definitely going to be sticking. Yeah, I was looking for it the other day, but there are charts that consistently show the European outperforms the GFS model. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The model is also, the GFS is run by the National Weather Service, and they're doing a lot more tasks. So they've got a lot of other things going on. There's not as many resources dedicated to the model as there is the European model. That's as far as I understand it anyway. Yeah, so looking right now, let's see. The European went a little bit back with the start of the snowfall. You can see, it looks like Vancouver mainly for Christmas Eve. Vancouver North, and then you can see maybe Bellingham, maybe Whatcom, Skagit County there, and then you can see a band set up there early Christmas morning, Snohomish County, Skagit, Whatcom County there, probably snowing by Christmas morning, and then it looks like most of the Puget Sound, most of Western Washington getting some light snow by Christmas morning, and then you can see some heavier areas of precip there in and around the Puget Sound and Western Washington there by late Christmas morning. And it continues on through the day, it looks like, and kind of a moderate band there. But temperatures might be kind of marginal there, so it might be hard to stick on the street until later on. I think by this point, this is when it was 30 degrees in Seattle, so it might be a slushy mess until temperature drops a bit. But then again, when you're dealing with an upper level low like this, that's tapping Arctic air, when you're underneath a precipitation band, it can easily drop the temperature a few degrees colder and make that stick on cement. So I have to remember that. A lot of times when you're underneath the precipitation band, temperatures are overdone. Doesn't seem like it's updating very quickly today. But anyway, let's back out a little bit here and we'll look at, just like to look at the European model as far as this. This is looking at the North Pole pulled down. And we're going to go to heights and we can kind of watch, if you guys watch this lobe of air over Siberia here, this big ridge is going to steer that thing right into North America here. Check it out. You can see that just kind of rides the ridge and merges with that polar vortex over North America. And you can see that lobe slide down into British Columbia there. And then it gets out over the Pacific a bit there. You see that little divot. And this is Christmas Eve. You're probably getting snow, Vancouver, Bellingham North at that point. And that lobe reaches out there, and it's probably snowing at least Portland North by that point. And then you can see that where we're at the end of the run there, and the big ridge is still going on. Well, let's check to see if the GFS has updated its. Oh, still hasn't updated. But check out some pictures from the 18Z on the GFS. Some of these are just outrageous. There's some below zero readings in here. And virtually every ensemble has us getting into at least the mid-20s. Maybe just one or two doesn't have that. But a lot of these are teens and even below 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So the heavy precip taps. When you get the heavier the precip, the more vertical motion you have with it. And if when you're dealing with a system like this, the Arctic air aloft is colder. So the more vertical motion, the more convection you have within that precipitation band, the more cold air it's going to drag down with it. So as long as it's snowing or you're underneath that band or a convergence zone or some kind of deformation band, it will drop the temperature lower than it is on areas that aren't getting as heavy precipitation. And dew points help, yes, also, especially when you have an Arctic air mass in place. Sometimes, I remember when I was younger, I noticed that it was probably 38 degrees this one snow event, and the dew point was probably 18. It was pretty dry, and I was thinking it can't snow because it's 38 degrees. But as soon as the moisture meets these dew points, you get evaporative cooling, and as you get that evaporative cooling, it drops the temperature, and the dew point will also raise too because the atmosphere is being moistened by the precipitation. Temperature will drop, dew point will rise, and they'll kind of meet there in the middle a bit. And so the temperature will drop from 38 to 28, 27 degrees while the dew point rises up, and you'll get accumulating snow on the cement when it was just, 10 degrees warmer just a couple hours prior. Wet bulb effect, yep. Yeah, some of these temperatures are outrageous. I mean, SeaTac's never been below 0 before, so you can just throw a lot of these below 0 readings out. SeaTac hasn't been below 10 degrees Fahrenheit since 1989. It's going on 32 years now, or actually, it's been 32. It's almost 33 years now since that. It's really amazing. And we used to get quite a few temperatures below 10 Fahrenheit. I mean, it would happen every few winters, and it hasn't happened in 33 years. It's hard to get cold air over the terrain in British Columbia into Western Washington, and any kind of loss of sea ice or anything really hampers the depth of the cold air in the poles, and it makes that cold air not quite as deep, and it makes it harder to navigate that terrain and get into Western Washington. So we'll continue to get them, but if there's anything to be learned by that, is that, you know, global warming, that's one of the first things that something like global warming will affect, is Arctic air intrusions trying to get past large terrain barriers. Yeah, Texas had some below 0 readings last year. If you guys remember that, that was pretty intense for that region. Those homes aren't really built for that, and that was really an extreme outbreak for them. Yeah, the Fraser, with some of this later on into after Christmas, the Fraser River might really get cranking, so we'll have to watch that. I'll look at some of that when the GFS is running in here too. Actually, let's check. Actually, why don't we just kind of look at that here real quick. Let's look at, we'll look at 6-hour max gust, and we will do, instead of SeaTac, we'll do Bellingham, and we'll see what if it shows anything for the, that doesn't show anything too crazy for the outflow winds, but these are probably outflow wind speeds here. So maybe some into the 20s and 30s. Unless it's just not registering at the airport there. I don't know, because I thought I saw stronger Fraser outflow winds at some point than that. But the GFS often, yeah, and I forgot, the GFS ensembles here for wind speeds are really underplayed. So we'll have to look at the European here. And we'll do the, see, here you go for Bellingham. This was the 12Z. This is, oh, this might be south winds off, but actually when we get out here towards the 24th, these are outflow winds. You can see some readings over 40 miles per hour there. So let's check the 12Z so we can look at it a little bit further. Those are probably going to be southerlies. So this is some Fraser River stuff out here. So there's some potential for some higher winds, but nothing too crazy yet, but we'll have to see how that plays out. So, and let us look at how far are we out here. Okay, we're out to the 27th now, and you can see that lobe goes away, but you can see it retrograding back here over Alaska. Is that going to come back down on us again? It has been in the past runs. We'll see what it does here. Let's look at the 12Z and check it out and see what it showed for this time period. So you can see that. This is what it was showing in the 12Z, that the leftover remnant of that polar vortex kind of retrogrades back over again, and that might be more of a dry intrusion there. So we'll have to see how that goes too. And this is getting a little bit too far out there. This is 10 days out. It's not really worth getting caught up in those details yet. Right now we're paying the most attention to this lobe as it comes down right there. Where will that one set up? Let's jump back out to the latest run here. Actually, let's compare those two. So you can see this takes a little bit more of a track over water here on the newest run. Depending on how cold the air mass is and how cold the air loft is, that can mean, in this scenario, it might be a good thing. It might not be as much of a cold air intrusion initially, but it does look like it gets out over us a little more, but then you can see it kind of weakens a little bit quicker. But yeah, let's see what happens here. So yeah, what do you guys think? Let's see, what kind of questions do you have? Yeah, the gradients are always how you measure outflow winds, Fraser River. They were showing some pretty good ones as of this morning. Let's just take a look at that. We'll get in there closer and look at that. Okay, and we're going to go to, this is a good way to look at that Lake Williams Bellingham pressure gradient. So if you kind of just take this, actually we can do this too. We can overlay the snowfall in there, why not? First of all, let's go over the 12Z and kind of find the best gradient. It was setting up around Christmas there. So this is 23rd. Chilly system right there. Looks like there might be some low snow levels in the 23rd. I'll have to watch that a little bit, but shouldn't be a big event. Christmas Eve. You can see some snow going up the Puget Sound. And you can see the gradient kind of setting up here. And it gets going pretty good here. So what is this? This is 1024, so this is 1020, and we're looking at 1,000. So yeah, you're pushing some 20 millibar gradients through there at this point, which is not a bad Fraser River Valley. It's not amongst our best. Actually, I believe last February we had something like 25 plus millibar. Yeah, Victoria could get good snowfall out of this also. As you can see, some of these bands are setting up right over Victoria there. You see some good convergent zone bands through the Puget Sound there also. So let's back out here and look at, we can look at 850 millibar temperatures here. We'll go to, and we'll go to upper air temperature. So you can see here we are currently right there. You can see most of that cold air east of the Rockies. Pretty chilly right now up in BC. Warms up a bit with that system on Tuesday night, and then it starts cooling down pretty rapidly there into Thursday. And you can see that cold air just becoming entrenched over British Columbia all the way down into Montana, east of the Rockies. You can see the Rockies there, and this is over the interior of BC, and it's coming off the coast there. This is Christmas night. And the cold air really comes down into the 26th. So there's probably going to be some convergent zone activity or some kind of band setting up as this low interacts, remnant moisture interacts with some of this cold air moving in. Let's look at the actual temperatures here. Yeah, plenty enough for snow. You need about -6 at 850. Anywhere between -4 and -8 you can get snow, but there's probably a rain snow mix between -4 and -6. Anything colder than -8 is a good bet for snow for sure, but about -6 is a cutoff line. And so this is this morning's run. Let's go ahead and see if we can show, is this going to show the current run? No, not yet. Actually, I have to go back out and reset that. And as we compare here, yeah, it looks like colder up through here and maybe a little bit more progressive on the earlier run, but similar temperatures. A little bit chillier on the earlier run over the Puget Sound, Washington at this point. But again, plenty cold enough for snow at that point. But again, there's going to be some of this waffling between models. I mean, it's very difficult to predict just what kind of trajectory you're going to get and just how much Arctic air you're going to get in place. these lobes are moving around, and you can see the differences in each run. It's pretty stark sometimes, and you just kind of know that it's a very difficult forecast. And this is what I mean here. Let's look at the upper air heights. And here's kind of the polar vortex here, the blue and the purple. You need a certain, about 523, 525 is when Puget Sound starts to see snow. So you need to be at least in the blue there to start getting snow for the Puget Sound. And actually, I'm going to play this with the earlier Euro here. Is that not loading? Doesn't want to load there, huh? Play this out. Notice how much this vortex here will start to differ. And we're stuck trying to figure out just when these lobes and what kind of trajectory these 500 millibar winds are going to take as they come off the coast and back into western Washington. And now we're out past that 18Z one, so let's see if we can get the 12Z going now. There we go. But you can see some differences in this vortex up here. Some of it's left behind up north, and there's more that's extended east, back shorter than the earlier run. And you can see each run these differences show up, so we're going to have differences in this forecast, right up into the event. But the signal is there. We're going to get cold. It's just, are we going to get the correct trajectory to get good snowfall? Let's check out this again here. Let's actually look at Bellingham and see if we can see what kind of temperatures they're calling for here. This is for the European model. The European is really conservative with a lot of these temperatures. So this is, man, that's pretty cold. Bellingham, a lot of these temperatures are below 10, plenty teens and 20s in there. So let's look at, this is not going to be updated yet. So let's go ahead and look at the GFS here, and we'll do, oh, here we go. So we've got the new GFS just came in here. Check out Bellingham. Some of these runs, there's a couple -10s and -16 in there. So it's kind of interesting to see. But the majority, I mean, you can see the cutoff here. Christmas Eve, Bellingham is going into the ice box, and it looks like it's going to stay there for a while into early January. And, once you get out, still, you've got to remember that December 29th here is still 10 days away. So we don't know what that's going to happen, what's going to happen with this system and this Arctic air after that. So let's look at SeaTac, what it has now. This is the GFS here. You can see Christmas night. Looks like SeaTac goes into the cold zone and does not come out for a while either. Most of the ensembles have it pretty chilly on into early January also. A lot of teens, a lot of 20s in there. Very few warm ensembles mixed in. Let's look at total snow. There you go, there's SeaTac. So you can see it's showing a few inches here by Christmas night and the 26th in the morning. And you can see all the variation in the model runs here. Yeah, 1996 we missed a white Christmas by one day. It started snowing just after midnight after Christmas, and that was quite the storm. That thing stretched through the end of the year too. Yeah, Vancouver and Bellingham right now are looking good. Places north of Skagit, Whatcom County and north are looking pretty good for white Christmas. But it's still looking pretty decent for a lot of western Washington for Christmas also. Not too much development since last night. We're still looking at... no, not too much of a development since last night. It's still looking pretty similar, and these models are going to waffle back and forth. So we're still looking at potential for a white Christmas and some snow, mainly Skagit, Whatcom County north on Christmas Eve. And we're still trying to figure out how this Arctic air is going to come in. Really tough forecast, as is every single one of these events. Yeah, the Arctic air is going to get in here and it's going to get pretty chilly. The question is it going to blast in or is it going to leak in? Are we going to get a nice low in the correct position to maximize this snowfall? Is the low going to stay too far north and keep us just warm enough where it doesn't stick on the streets and it's not a big event? And will there be multiple lows spinning around that Arctic high? And how will we come out of the event? And then will there be reinforcing blasts of Arctic air? All yet to be seen. Yeah, this is the most difficult place to predict weather, in my opinion, on the planet. I mean, you're dealing with sea level areas, surrounded by terrain, and then you've got a huge mountain range up through British Columbia that blocks cold air for the interior a lot of the times. And so you're trying to predict, can it get over the mountains? When it does get over the mountains into the coastal range, there's going to be troughing, you know that, but where will the low form? How strong will it be? How much will the trajectory come over water? How much heat will it pick up? It's extremely detailed forecast. It's very difficult to predict. Yeah, so Vancouver is in play for snowstorm on Christmas. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, these runs will be switching back and forth, but the signal is there. It looks like we will get some snow at some point. If you're looking at the GFS, every single ensemble has it. We're getting cold. This isn't like the one last week where everything was marginal and we just had, you know, it was obvious that it was not cold enough at the surface, but the models just keep wanting to put snow out there. And so this is a different system. This is a different setup, and the models are going to do better with snow potential and snow amounts in this system, almost certainly. They'll use a blend of models. They'll look at the GFS. They'll look at the Euro. They'll look at the HER, the NAM. They look at everything. They watch the satellite. They look at current observations. So yeah, they're looking at everything. They don't leave anything out, really. Sometimes the National Weather Service forecasters get a bad rap, but they're really pretty good, and especially that they know certain areas and terrain features pretty well, like Seattle meteorologists are pretty good. And the national blend, you're just kind of taking a blend of models, and it kind of trends towards conservative values, so that's good. So you're not stuck with, you know, outlandish results, and you're like, oh, we're going to get a foot of snowfall. When you look at the national blend of models, it kind of blends things out. So let's go ahead and let's look at that. National blend. You can see that after Christmas, we barely get above freezing for 5 days. And this is a very conservative forecast here. This national blend of models really is conservative. So nice and cold. You might get your local ponds frozen over. I mean, that's pretty good. Surface summary. Let's see. Is it predicting? It's just predicting precipitation amounts. So, I mean, what you're looking at by the time the snow starts, a few tenths of an inch, so a few inches probably is what they would be calling for. It's interesting they don't have the winds turning around to the north very much, but they're still very light. So that Arctic air in that case would be seeping in, just, you know, the airloft would be really cold and it would kind of chill the atmosphere that way instead of just a straight out Arctic blast. So it's always fun to get those Arctic blasts, but they are difficult to get in here for sure. And this is no sure thing for an Arctic blast coming in here. Let's see what, take a look at the European. This is the 18Z, so let's run back to the 12Z and just kind of look at what the European had. The European is pretty conservative also, and those are really low temperatures. I mean, Christmas Day barely above freezing, and then we just go into the ice box there for a few days. Let's check the surface summary. You can see the winds turn north, but that's not until right after Christmas. That's what the GFS was showing, that 12Z was showing kind of a modified Arctic front and a wind switch from the southerly winds to the northerly winds there with a band of snow and falling temperatures. Here's another fun one to look at too. The low level cross section. This goes up to about 10,000 feet here. So chop it in half, it's 5,000 feet. And you can see about Christmas morning, it just went below freezing and doesn't come back up pretty much through the new year. Yeah, I'll probably do another live stream, especially as this event gets closer. And the more significant it might be, the more I'll tend to do these live streams and stuff on top of the videos, for sure. Yeah, the European, what was it, a couple days ago, kind of went warmer, and then it was cold, went warmer, and then came back cold, and now it sounds like the 0Z is going a little bit warmer. But it can easily swing back. You know, we're going to have to watch it as it comes. This is the more recent GFS here. You can see a warm of the 29th, and maybe we go back down after that. But you can see really cold air all the way down, starting Christmas morning on the GFS 2. The Canadian here, you can see nighttime of Christmas Day. We go into the ice box there. This is the 0Z. I forgot what the icon has in there. Does it have that? Yeah, icon has it too. Yeah, it shows at nighttime the Christmas. It doesn't go out too far, only to the morning of the 27th on the icon. Icon is the Germany model also. We're looking at the GFS 24-hour snowfall here too. So you can see some pretty extreme totals in here, depending on just how the low sets up, like I talked about earlier. But when it's cold out and you get 2 inches of snow, I mean, it can be a significant event. It can really, you know, jam the traffic up, traffic jams. It can shut down the airport, even just a couple inches. I mean, some of these higher totals would be, you know, very significant. I mean, icon will show similar things. I don't know how good the icon is compared. I don't think it's as good as it's not as good as the European model, but it's probably something similar accuracy wise to the GFS probably. Yeah, you know, that's the thing about last year. It was a pretty good signal for February. I'll go ahead and pull up that event here actually. Let's look at it real quick. That was something that was really strong. But then again, there's always uncertainty. You can't just, it looked good. Like this one looks good at times, but February last year might have looked a little bit better in the 5+ day extended. So let's take a look at that here. Let's go 2019. Actually, you want to, let's see, should we do 21 or should we do 19? We'll start with 19 here. Oop, too far. Okay, so we'll start on the first and we'll bring up, just to get a look at thing, we'll look at geopotential height. We can watch the polar vortex here, and then we can put this into motion. Nope, we're not clicking here. Nope, I'm not signed in, that's why. Okay, try that again here. Bounce back out. This thing is kind of weird. You have to like click on it just right so you get to show what you want to see here for like Western Canada here in the Pacific Northwest. All right, so let's go to 2019. We'll take a look at that February to remember. 2019. Start on the 1st. Change parameters, 500 millibar height. I think the snow started on the 3rd and then it came back on the 7th or 8th, if I remember correctly. We got two pretty good shots, and there's the one coming on the 3rd. So that lobe, that's not too different from what we're getting now, but this does come off a little bit further south than what the European was showing. I can already tell that right there. So it comes down over us. I think it got areas of Portland or Oregon pretty well too with that one. And let's go for, we got the big snowfall. Was that the 8th? I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. It might have been the 7th or the 8th of February, maybe even the 6th. I can't remember exactly. But here we are on the 6th. Okay, what's this doing here? A little bit slow loading. And here we go. Here's the next lobe that comes down, and this is on the 8th. So that must have been the 8th. So, I mean, some of these model runs have shown similar progressions with that, with the upper level air. And if we take a look at, you can see that cold air entrenched over British Columbia there, a lot of it hanging out east of the Rockies. Let's see what that low development looked like. Yeah, what a beastly high pressure there, and a pretty deep low relative there. So we had a good gradient. So yeah, it doesn't look as good as February 2019 right now. That can change, and it can change right up until the last minute. Actually, when you get Arctic air around, you tend to get surprise snowfalls in the area, and some of them can be pretty extreme. Yeah, please subscribe if you guys can. It's fun doing these videos, and I like seeing, I can tell some of you guys know what you're talking about here. It's good to get this feedback from you guys. So looking on into the future here, it's still only loaded to 198. Looks like that lobe might come down again for another visit later on. But yeah, these are going to be in flux for a while. I do like the look of this one here. If that reaches out a little bit further, we could really be in business, but it's not bad. And there's going to be plenty of Arctic air up there, and so one of these lows might spin around and give us a nice surprise. Doesn't look quite as good as a February 2019 or February of this past year. Could still change though. But yeah, I'll have to do breakdown videos of some of these past events too, and I need to get this data into folders too, so I can just access the 500 millibars, the lower level, the sea level pressure, the snow amounts of the days that it occurred. I started to do that, but I need to finish that, and I'd like to do that for all events actually. CTAC from 1950 on. I've got the data ready to organize it where I can access it properly. That's one of my favorite pastimes. I get slow at work, and I'll just start looking at past snow events and checking out the evolution here on how they came about. Let's see if the GFS control is running here, and it is. It's only at hour 128 here, but let's compare it to the 12Z so we have a reference point. Here comes our system on the 23rd. It's going to be chilly, probably not a lowland snow event there. And you can see it's a little bit, that lobe doesn't extend out as much. But here's going into Christmas Eve morning. And the 12Z is here. So that's something you got to remember too. Sometimes you can get caught up in looking at the control runs. And when you look at the ensembles, you see a little bit of a different picture, because actually the placement of this vortex is actually a little bit better than it was at 12Z. Excuse me. So that's something to remember right there. This is a pretty good, a nice configuration. And let's look at upper air only gives us 50 and 200 on this one, so I'll just go ahead and look at some of these are okay, so it's going out to about 84, 108. Yeah, I mean they're pretty similar for the most part. Actually, today's model, this 850 cold air is a little bit more progressive there. So 500 heights aren't everything apparently. Bar temps of cold air is streamed into Western Washington there too. And let's look at the, let's just wait for the control to run, but we'll go ahead and take a look at this really quick. It looked like the ridge was building out there too. Let's take a look at that. I think the start of the ridge, you can see this cold air kind of pouring off BC here, and it's kind of making a nice image there. And this is going to in turn be the ridge that starts to build out over the Pacific, and see this jet stream out here coming up over the Aleutians, and that's going to form the ridge, and then the Arctic air can kind of try to get down on us on the back side of that. Pretty standard setup. Maybe we'll get a few flakes out of this tomorrow too. I saw some mixed rain and snow a few days ago, and that's about it. I was hoping I would see just some straight up snow, but I know some of the people on the outliers got some. Yeah, I've got all my stuff on external hard drives. I need to get it more organized. The strength of the Arctic high, that's something notable too. The strength of the Arctic high does not look as impressive as some of the, some of our past events. It doesn't always mean much, because when I looked at 1950, I expected to see this completely huge Arctic high, and it wasn't really that powerful of a high, but the low that swung in through Western Washington was like a 980 millibar low, so it was the low made up for that difference. But let's take a look here, and let's just run the control here for a second here, because I know it's run out more. Here is currently, and we're sliding into the 20th, 21, 22. You see that system coming down off of southeast Alaska there. And we're still loading this run up. See that troughing kind of come over British Columbia there too, so that's not going to be much of a snowmaker, as we talked about. Okay, come on. Nice system going through the Midwest there. And then you can see our trough that might bring snow from Skagit, Whatcom, southern BC, as it sets up right there Christmas Eve morning. Nice spot for it. A bit of a gradient through South British Columbia there, but you see the Arctic high is not that powerful. Sometimes we'll get the big 1050, 1060 ones out here, or we'll get a 1040 down into central British Columbia, but not yet. Let's see how that progresses though. And here is Christmas morning, and where it showed most of the Puget Sound getting snow by this point. There's a pretty good gradient there, even though the high isn't that strong. The low is relatively lower, but it's not a 2019 February type setup as of right now. Still doesn't mean there can't be some significant snowfall out of it though. And then you can see this next system just kind of coming down, and that Arctic high is a little stronger there. That's kind of interesting. The 1040 starts getting into northern British Columbia there. Grading is actually better, and sometimes on the backside of these lows you can get convergent bands through the Puget Sound, and southern BC can get walloped in a setup like this too. But yeah, you can see this troughing just keeps developing back to the west. on the southern periphery of this Arctic high, just repeated. So there's going to be probably multiple chances at snow as we go through into the new year. So it's going to be crazy. There's probably going to be a lot of hype watching these individual events, and some people are going to get busted with no snow, and some people are going to probably get surprised and get decent snowfall amounts, and there's going to be a lot of variability and some cold temperatures. So it's going to be a fun time. Yeah, I might do another one of these streams tomorrow night. Yeah, if you guys want. Yeah, let's look at that. That's the best Arctic high I can remember. Take a look at this. This is just pure insanity here. I can remember too. Check out that 1070 millibar high for the Yukon. It's just outrageous. I think it was actually got a little bit even higher than that, didn't it? Putting it into motion here. 1071, 1072. Amazing. Yeah, that thing hit like a hammer. I mean, it snowed for like 36 hours straight at my house just south of Seattle. We had like 11 inches of snow on the ground, and the north wind was probably gusting over 40 miles an hour. We had 5-foot snow drifts. I think I was 16 at the time, and it got down to 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Insanity. Yeah, there's probably going to be some good hype going on. I'll show you, since we're doing hype stuff, let's do this. So sometimes it doesn't like me loading. I got the 1950 stuff to load earlier today, but it wouldn't do it the other day also. I don't know what's going on here. Oh, it's got the 500s there. Maybe somebody took the sea level pressure information out there. But even the 500 heights are pretty impressive. This is the lowest I could ever find getting over Western Washington. I mean, it's like what here? It's like 5015 decameters. Just an incredibly well-placed system. And the low was 980 that just slid through Western Washington. And there were multiple rounds of snow in 1952. My mom was 4, and she can actually remember the snow from that. But I think she actually did remember the 68, 69 December, January super winter where we got like 67 inches of snow in Seattle in the 2 months. Sometimes I try to imagine what a repeat of that would be like in the city. But yeah, next day or two, and I'll do my normal videos also on top of that. And I'll do one more look at the control for the European here. How far are we out now? Okay, we're out a bit. So let's go ahead and run that. Yeah, it could happen again. It's possible. It's just pretty unique. I mean, we've gotten good snowfalls 2 out of the last 3 Februarys. Those are really nice storms. So that's a nice solution there, right here, the day after Christmas on the control run. That's a decent gradient. That's a well-placed low that would give Western Washington, southern BC, down into Oregon some pretty good snow with that. Seems like it's skipping ahead quite a bit there. Even though it's not a really strong Arctic high showing up there, it's kind of interesting that the high is not showing that strong. A little cause for concern, but what can you do? We'll just have to watch these models waffle around with this stuff and see how this goes. Yeah, 1916. I remember reading stories about that. And I remember my grandma telling me that my great-grandma told her that Green Lake froze over in 1916. I think it froze over in the 30s also. Yeah, it's possible climate change could make us snowier, but the problem with climate change is that when you're looking at British Columbia here, our cold air masses come from the north or from the northeast, and this is huge terrain out here. And in order to get across that, you need a really deep Arctic dome of cold air. And so when you lose sea ice and the temperatures are lower, that dome becomes less, that it's less thick, has a harder time getting across the terrain. And when it does, the compression heating warms up the air mass more than it would if that air mass was deeper. I've heard Cliff Mass talk about that. I talk with Cliff at times. I visit him at his work, and he's come to visit me at my work. So that's one of the things he agrees upon with climate change, is that cold air outbreaks are less likely, and it kind of already showing up in the pattern quite a bit. Like I said, again, the last 33 years, we've only gotten below zero once, and that was 1989. And we used to get below 10, sorry. We used to get below 10 every few winters, and it just doesn't seem to happen anymore. And the really cold winters have seemed to be gone. I know we got good snows in February the last 2 out of 3 years, but the temperatures really weren't that cold. 2008 it got down to 14 degrees, I believe, but yeah. Yeah, the 24th you might be all right. Once you start getting into Christmas night, you might get a little snow on the ground here, though. Yeah, December 69 was it, or was it December 68? I forget now. But yeah, that was an amazing snow total. Okay, but I'm going to wrap this thing up, and I'll do another video probably tomorrow, and then I'll do my normal video each day, but I might do another live stream. I might skip tomorrow. Tuesday. We'll be all the more closer to the event, and we'll know more of what's going to go on, and we can chat and play out some live streams. Yeah, hopefully get some snowflakes tomorrow. It'd be a nice winter scene just to see it. Give us a little taste of maybe what's coming up here in the next couple weeks. So yeah, hopefully you guys can click like and subscribe, and yeah, hopefully maybe this is the year of extremes. Maybe we'll get the polar opposite of cold air over BC than versus that summer heat dome we got. So okay, I'm going to wrap it up here, and I will tomorrow. Thanks.